Well, we start with, I think, familiar tools that we might already be using. So if we're a Facebook user, we can use Messenger, and that will allow us to have video chats on a one-to-one basis. We can also do that in FaceTime if we have an iPhone or an iPad. But if we want to talk to more people, then there are other options such as Zoom and Houseparty, and both of those allow you to have a number of people in a chat at the same time. Google have also unlocked their group video chat functionality, which I believe can give up to 100 people at a time into a group chat or a meeting. I'm not sure how well that would work.
I can imagine it, can't you? All talking together
at the same time.
Do they all have individual advantages then, the different Zooms and the Skypes and these sort of things?
Yeah, I think Skype, for instance, is very well known, so it's a trusted brand in a sense, as the same as Zoom. Lots of people are talking about Zoom at the moment. It's getting lots of positive press, some negative, but it's a familiar brand, so people are more likely to trust that it's a safe place to go. So yeah, there's good and bad on all of these things. Houseparty I've used a little bit. You do have to lock the door on that effectively. There's an option to lock the door to stop people just wandering into a conversation, which I believe you can do on that app.
Didn't know that. But Zoom is private, isn't it? Is it just your own group, or can anyone join in your conversation?
Yeah, there was discussions about potentially people can jump into conversations. I'm still not entirely clear how they go about doing that. It's a sort of malicious way, and I believe that it's been locked down. But generally, you would, with Zoom, you would be set your own meeting up and then send out an invite to your friends, trusted friends, and then they can use that invitation code to join the meeting, or even just add them in if you have them set up as contacts within Zoom, so you can have, again, a group of people that you trust that you add to a meeting or add to a conversation.
A lot of people are trying this for the first time, and they're learning by, like I do, like making mistakes. For a novice, what do we need to do? What's the equipment we need? If they're just someone, say a retired person now, and they've got a computer, what do they need to have?
Ideally, they need to have a relatively modern computer, so the last 5 or 6 years old. It needs to have a webcam. Many laptops or notebook-sized computers have built-in webcams. That can be beneficial because the software will generally recognise them from the start, so you don't have to mess around trying to configure things. And you need to have something that's got a pair of speakers on it. Normally, again, laptops, notebook type computers will have speakers on them, or you can use an iPad or a tablet, because it's going to have a reasonably decent sized screen and decent sound and microphone and everything.
There's no special connection you need for this, is there? It's just on your ordinary internet connection.
Yeah, when we say ordinary internet connection, I mean, yeah, it's broadband, reasonably high speed. I think most households appear to have this. I know there are some that don't, but yeah, broadband, 30 megabits per second or something like that would be sufficient to have a video conversation, because your video is actually going out to another server and then being served back to you using complicated things. So you're not having like 20 people connecting into your computer or anything. It's all done from a centralized set of servers based at whichever provider is you're using.
But as an ordinary user, we don't have to be bothered with those things, do we? With the gubbins that goes on behind, we just assume it does, and let you boffins do it like that. Oh,
that's right. I think simplicity is the key, and if these things are too complicated, then that's the stumbling block. People become frustrated and they don't know what they're doing. And I have to be honest, I find that sometimes I use a piece of software, someone says to me, try this out, and I just think, what is going on here? Why is nothing where it should be? This is really difficult to use, and people's concentration or their patience, especially at a time like we're going through at the moment, is low, so it needs to be simple to set up. Funnily enough, the phone and the tablet apps tend to be much easier to use, in my opinion, than the PC based. I think it's because they're simplified from the start anyway, so they can't get too complicated. So there's a lot of swiping to the left and right to get options and stuff like that, but it's fairly easy to use.
Okay, take me through like a typical couple today in Dovercourt or in Harwich or in Felixstowe. They've got their PC and they want to set up a Zoom meeting. What do they need to prepare?
I think they need to find somewhere where they're going to be comfortable, where there's not going to be sun glare on their screen, and consequently if there's glare on the screen it's probably going to glare on their camera as well and obscure the other person's view of them. And also what's kind of useful is, if you're going to have something like this running, is to try and position the device that you're going to be looking at sort of as close to head height as possible. Otherwise, because really you get a better result.
You get less nasal hair, don't you?
Yeah,
and
you're not
chins.
looking up somebody's nose, and it's a lot more, and it's a lot kinder as well. You know, you don't, even if you don't have a double chin, if you have the camera too far down, it will accentuate those kind of things as well. So this is why you see lots of selfie photographs where they're holding them up high and looking down. It's because it has that slimming effect on them.
So if you've got your laptop on your table and you're sitting at it, probably put it on some books and have it higher up, so almost eye level.
Yeah, I mean, if where I'm sitting at the moment, I've got like a scanner printer, and I could effectively lift my laptop up on top of that, and that would lift it up by 6 inches and give a nice pleasant framing of me if I was on video chat. So yeah, just a couple of big books that's nice and stable, and that'll just lift it up. If it's if you're using a device, you don't have to hold that device in your hand. You can lean it up against something, or secure it somewhere so it's nice and steady, and then you've got your hands free to be comfortable.
And how far away should it be? I mean, we can see a tiny little picture of ourselves, but often we forget that's our picture, and we forget that what they're looking at, what other people are looking at. That's important, isn't it? So that we look good.
Yeah, if you're too close, then the camera on these devices is going to make you, because they're quite wide angles, you're going to get a bit of a fishbowl effect if you're not careful. If you're too far away, then your sound is going to be affected as well. So you kind of need to be in a comfortable sort of position. I know, maybe 2 foot away from whatever you're looking at, just to. You don't want to be completely filling the frame, but you also don't want to be so far away that you're just a little tiny spot on someone's screen, because these chat systems will have multiple people on the screen at the same time sometimes, and therefore they've got to recognise who you are. So yeah, you just got to experiment really and get comfortable and feel comfortable with what you look like. Although it sounds like we're being super obsessed by how we look, but you've got to be comfortable if you're going to do these things, because it can be scary to people, when they first start using them.
When I watch the interviews on telly, I love looking in the background. That's important as well, isn't it? Make sure you tidy up and put certain things away. Don't leave them out on show for everybody to see what you've got.
This happens to me all the time. I do quite a lot of video stuff where I'm recording myself, and I'll sit there, set myself up and record and get everything set up, and then I'll suddenly realise that there's a clothes dryer in the background with a pair of underpants hanging over it or something, and you're suddenly rushing around trying to move everything out of the way. So have a think about where you're going to sit. You can actually, with a lot of these systems, you can actually pick a background which it uses a bit of trickery. It'll ask you to effectively get out of shot, so it can just see the background, and then it takes a kind of picture of the background and then does like a blue screen effect on it, so you can put some other background behind you. But that sometimes doesn't work that great if you've got long hair and things like that. You can find your hair disappears. Yeah. And reappears again. But again, you can do that if you want to. If you really want to completely disguise where you are, you can put your own backgrounds in.
I've tried that. I was on the beach last week, and that looked really good. But it's sound, you've got to be careful as well, because I'm where I am at the moment. I noticed when I was on air today, I've got a really creaky chair, and you can hear that. So again, watch what sound you've got and watch what surface you're working on, because you can hear every knock, can't you?
I've got exactly the same problem. The chair that I'm sitting on at the moment, every time I move, there's a nice little creak.
I thought that was your back.
Well, it was really. So, again, think about those sort of things. It's really about I tell you, one of the big issues is that when you get into these conversations, I saw it yesterday. I somehow started watching a competition where these people had to eat a particular biscuit. How many they could eat in 60 seconds? I can't. Did you see?
Yeah.
And there was one guy on there. They did say, "Can everyone mute their microphones, please?" And this one guy hadn't, and you could hear him clattering around in the background. And of course, what happens with especially Zoom is that it's triggered by sound and motion. So if you make a noise or if you speak, it gives you the floor, if you like. So you become centre stage. And because this guy was clattering around quite a bit, it kept jumping to him. So yeah, be aware that all the noise you make around your computer is going to be picked up by the microphone.
It can be quite inappropriate sometimes when you're watching a church service.
So can you imagine so?
And of course, make sure that other people in the household know what you're doing, so they don't shout out to you. Dinner's ready, or walk in. That's fun as well.
Yes, I was on a Zoom the other day, which was which had about 6 other people were in, and normally we'd meet up. But this was the first time that they tried to do it remotely, and there were grandchildren walking in the background asking for a drink. There was someone knocking on the door and getting up, and all of these kind of things were going on. And I think we started out with about 7 people, and by the end of the meeting there were about 3 of us left because everyone else had to go off and do all these other things. So yeah, make sure that you sort of apply yourself if you're going to go and do it, especially if you're hosting it. Don't try not to get too distracted.
It's fun, though, isn't it? I mean, unless it's a business meeting, which it's different. But it's fun, and it's a different way of communicating. And it is crucial at this time that we have something like this.
It is. It's incredible. We're at such a drastic time in all of our lives. We're so lucky that technology has, in some ways, saved us from a much worse fate, in as much as we have all this technology, all these ways of doing things that we didn't have 20 years ago. So we can order our food, we can do all of these, I think, and we can communicate with our loved ones, which is really, really important. And especially when we're being asked to try and distance ourselves from people, keep socially distanced, that by being able to have that interaction with our family and friends via video is great. A friend of mine has had quiz nights with his family where they've actually set up quiz boards and they're all sitting there in, asking questions and answering questions. It's incredible how inventive and creative people have become with something that probably wasn't initially designed for this kind of thing. It was intended for business meetings and stuff like that, but actually the family get together is great.
And it's not scary to try the first time. Try it with some friends or family, or maybe some coffee mates, to bring them up and say, to Skype them or Zoom and say, shall we have a go? It's worth trying, isn't it?
Of course it is, and I was trying it out with my dad the other day, and he was talking to me, and I ended up ringing him on the landline and saying, "Dad, you've got your microphone muted. Can you just unmute it?" Well, how do I do that then? So I'm trying to talk him through unmuting his microphone so I could hang up on him and hear him via, I think it was FaceTime actually. No. We were on at the time, but yeah, it was fine. If you're doing it with people that are your family and friends, and you should be comfortable enough to take direction from them and everything like that without feeling daft, and it's great fun. I know that there's lots and lots of people involved. I've noticed a lot of church services actually have started doing Zoom church services, which I think is great. I did ask my mum the other day, I said, "Are you standing in the living room singing the hymn?" But she didn't. She just, I think she thought I was joking.
Well, funny enough, the congregations are bigger on the FaceTime and Zoom than ever they had in the church. So it is good. It's a new way.
It is a new way of doing things, and we seem to be able to find a way around these difficulties, and this seems to be one of the amazing things. And it's also interesting to see how TV programs have now started using the same technology, and how you can see that they're used to doing things a particular way, and they're suddenly having to use a new technology, and sometimes it doesn't work that well. Because you don't get that audience feedback that you would normally be used to. Whereas you have the people that are used to using YouTube and those kind of platforms all the time, they're much more comfortable with that whole thing, and they come across better. So it's a very interesting time.
This is only part of what you do. You're gadget mad, aren't you? Absolutely addicted to gadgets.
All kinds of things, technology and gadgets and everything. Yeah.
What are you working on at the moment then? What sort of things?
Well, I've still got a business to run, and I've still been doing things relating to that. I've been lucky that my customer base hasn't been terribly affected so far by what's been going on. So that's been going on as normal. But I've also been doing lots of different pet projects. At the moment, I started a few weeks ago building a website to give people the ability to print signage for social distancing and information, and it's all free and things like that. And it's turned out that it's become really, really busy. I've got, at any one time, I've got 10 or 11 people all trying to make their own signs on the website. So that's been really, really challenging. And also from just having some basic posters that I designed myself, now people can go on there and design their own and put their own text on there and then download it as a PDF, print it and put it on their walls or wherever else they need to. So that's kind of trying to give something back to the community and society, rather than find a way of making money off the back of it, but actually do something that's creative and good for people.
And it's skills that we can learn at this time that we take forward for when we do eventually get better times.
Yes, I mean, I've also made some gadgets, some electronic gadgets, and built cameras which can do film stars and things like that, and all kinds of different things I've done just because I've had the time to do it. I've always wanted to have these things for other reasons, but because there's been so much spare time to be able to do it, and it's an excuse. You can kind of excuse yourself. So
don't you worry about what's
there's lots of people.
Don't you worry about what's going on inside your head?
I do, really. There's lots of things. I the other day I built a very, very simple website that could generate 1980s t-shirt slogans like "Frankie say relax" or "choose life," but have all the text aligned correctly and resize. I sat there for a whole evening doing that and was able to do it, and then you go and look at the logs to see what other people might be doing, and you find out that they're all making sort of their own t-shirt slogans. Yeah, it does worry me really why I thought that was an important thing to do, but I'm sure I tried to find an excuse for doing that project to solve another problem on something else.
You better tell people where to find you then.
Yes, you can go to thegadgetman.org.uk, which is my gadget review site, and from there you'll be able to link to the other websites as well, which is t-shirtslogans.uk and socialdistancingsigns.uk.